Okay, thank you. Shall we start or shall we wait for people to join? How many people are there? Can you tell? With the questions? Okay. Okay. Good evening. I will take questions that will come along. Okay. So there are some 30 odd questions in our future. Okay. So I was hoping that the answer to this question should be clear to you in the sense that programming will, first of all, it will be a course that you will learn in any engineering school. So you will get a head start on it. But I really hope that because of programming, you will get an additional perspective on computation, mathematics, even things like physics, because the programs that we write in this programming course deal with all these subjects. And I have taught this course several times, and many students in my class have come back and told me that because we write a program, because they wrote a program, they understand the math better. So say you learn Newton's method for finding roots. So because you programmed it, you understood it better. So that's what many students have told me. So that is certainly going to be one of the benefits of the course, a side benefit. The main benefit, of course, is that you will learn programming, and that will be a very solid step. It will certainly make the course that you study later on feel much easier, and you will be able to go much further in that. Shall I move on to the next question? I think. Ogar, I should just move on to. I should just keep on going through the questions, right? Okay. 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 The next question, I guess, is a bit of a request. So the person over here says, "Sir, please take the class step by step." Okay. What he's saying is that perhaps he's not following what is happening. I'm really sorry for that. Uh, However, I have tried to take the class step by step, and I think the way to deal with this issue is for you to ask me uh, which step it is that you're not following. Okay, you cannot. You can. I mean, yeah. So I think then I will be able to help you. So you could say that why am I not going much slower? Okay, but you have to remember that in the class there are 30,000 students. So I cannot go at the pace at which every person might want. I have to try to do the best possible for sort of the most of the students. And other students, say perhaps if you are having difficulties with certain steps, I think you are supposed to raise those difficulties on the discussion forum and they will get answered. Okay. I'm sorry if the class is feeling like it is faster than what you would have liked. But as I said, we have to go with a certain speed, which, in my judgment, I think is probably the best speed for the entire class for most of the students. Okay, I will move on to the next question after that. So, okay, this question says how to learn programming in easy way. so, so how to learn anything in easy way is always a problem. I think you may know this story that some king, I think some British king probably, or some king asked some teacher, all what you are teaching me is very difficult. So is there a way to learn it more easily? Okay, so you know what that teacher said to that king. So the teacher apparently said to the king that, look, there is no royal road to learning. You know, kings are accustomed to be driven in chariots or I mean, they are, everything is made easy for them. But what this teacher or guru said was that there is no royal road. So if some things are difficult, they are difficult. Okay. At the same time, let me give you perhaps some answers. Okay, so programming is an extremely practical subject. It's not a theoretical subject. Okay, what I mean by that is that learning in programming happens by doing. Okay, so you are not supposed to look at a program and admire it and think about what it does. Well, you are supposed to do all of that, but what you are supposed to do primarily is to run it. Okay, see what happens when it runs. Okay, and write it. So if you have a question, uh, why is this working this way? Then you are supposed to maybe put a print statement there and see what that program, how that what that program prints. If you are wondering how can the value of this variable be this particular value at this point in the program. So if you are wondering that, the simplest thing for you to do is to put a print statement. So once you get the hang of how a program runs, then you have to start thinking about these things on your own. Okay. So you are indeed supposed to figure out mentally, but please keep in mind that it is a very applied activity. So you are supposed to try to write programs of many different kinds, and only then will you master programming. It is a very practical activity in the sense like it's like riding a bicycle, or it is like swimming. Okay, I can't lecture how much ever I tell you how to ride a bike or how to swim. That is not going to be good unless you actually try to do that on your own. Okay, so the most important thing is to try and write lots of programs, and then you will see some difficulties, and then you try and address them. You have to deal with the difficulties, and as you deal with the difficulties, you will learn. Okay, so some learning will of course happen by reading books. So, but the real learning will happen when you try to write programs. Okay, I think there is a second question in this: how to join in industry. So you are a student right now, isn't it? How to join in industry? So it will happen, right? So you will figure out on your own whether you are able to write a program. So the simple test of whether you are able to write a program is to ask yourself, if I can solve this problem by hand, can I make a program solve it? Okay. So that's the simplest way to figure out whether you have learned programming yourself. So if the answer to that is yes, then you have learned how to write a program, and then I would say that you have taken one solid step. Of course, to join the industry, this is only the first step. There are many other courses that you need to learn. So, for example, we did a little bit in the course about data structures. So you have to understand that data structures material quite a bit. There are many algorithms that you may need to learn. And not only that, there are some very specific technologies. Like, for example, in many industrial jobs, you will need to learn something about databases, or you will need to know something about networks, or these days you may need to know something about data science or statistics. So all of those things are there for you to learn. But at the center of it, once you learn all of these things, you have to be able to write a program, and that is a solid step that you will have taken when you complete this course. Okay, let me move on to the next question. Okay. So the next question is, will questions on simple CPP come in the exam? Okay, so there may be some very simple questions. Okay, so first of all, remember that the exam that we are going to have is a multiple choice and fill in the blank exam, much like the exam, like the quizzes that you had during the course. Okay, so it will not be a programming test, but just as in the programming test, there were questions like, I give you a program and I will tell you, and I will ask you, what does the program do? Or I give you a program in which there are there are some things which have some blanks which have to be filled. So I will ask you what is to go into those blanks. Okay, so those are the kinds of things that will be asked. So yes, some very simple CPP related questions will be there. So you should know the basic simple CPP ideas. Okay, like forward. Okay, very simple things. Okay, nothing too complicated. Okay, whatever was covered during the course, if you know, that is all there is to it. Okay, so simple CPP is not sort of the focus of it, but there may be some really very simple questions. Okay. Okay, can you state the best practices for learning a new language? Okay. Now, this question is actually a complicated question. So when you say, can you state the best practices for learning a new language? Do you mean the first language that you learn? Okay, or do you mean subsequent languages? Because the first language that you are learning is going to be a little bit more difficult because at that point you are also learning how to program. Okay, you have not really learned programming when you learn the first programming when you learn the first programming language. You don't know what you are going to write in the program, or you don't know what computation is. So let me answer it for both. So if it is the first programming language that you are going to learn, then the more important thing over there is to understand programming rather than the language itself. As you know, the title of our course is not C++. It is an introduction to programming. It is not an introduction to C++. You understand the difference? So the focus is on programming. So the focus is on understanding what is a loop. Okay, the focus is on understanding what is a function. The focus is on understanding what recursion is, what is an array, what is a structure. Okay, so these are concepts which come up in every programming language. So once you have understood those concepts, okay, you are and so it's like learning any language. Okay, so you will understand how to name words, you will understand the grammar, but you can't understand the grammar abstractly. It is very difficult to understand the grammar abstractly. So the first time you learn a language, you will actually need to learn the grammar of a certain language or the vocabulary of a certain language. But the second time you learn a new language, you can often say that, look, I already know C++. Okay, now I am going to learn Lisp or I am going to learn Python. So which are the concepts in Python which are similar to the things that I already know? Okay, so you can make these parallel connections and that will help you learn the new language. Of course, that is not entirely correct. Each language may have some of its own new concepts. So those concepts you will have to learn afresh. But by and large, again, whatever new concepts are there in the new language, some representation of those concepts will be there in the older language as well. So the first language that you learned, if it has concepts of every kind, then learning newer languages will be easier. And to that extent, C++ is a really good language because it has concepts which appear in most of the concepts that appear in modern programming languages are there in C++. Not all, but many, most are there. Okay, so if you understand the C++ concepts well, then you already have a great advantage in learning other languages that you might want to learn. Okay, so I think so. I am assuming that this is the question that you wanted, and let me just check for the questions over here. Okay. Okay, so I think Omkar, if there is a question related to the topic that I am asking, please do stop me. All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I will. So should I keep the YouTube questions seem to be going very fast. I think there are some 72 questions already over there. Okay. So let me just go through this, and I don't mind repeating answers. Okay. So if there is a question that comes up later, I'll just repeat the answer to it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. How can we learn fast? I wish I knew the answer to that. Okay, so the answer to that is related to the question that was asked earlier. How can we learn easily? Okay, or how to learn programming easily. So so okay, so if you get a good teacher who doesn't confuse you, okay, then you certainly have a chance of learning fast or learning easily. Okay, so that is something that is needed. Okay, but in addition to that, okay, what is really needed is for you to think on your own as well. Okay, so I would not be worried about learning fast. I would be much more worried about learning properly. Okay, so what does that mean? So say you want to learn what iteration is, okay, or what loops are. So what should you be learning over there? So you should, of course, know the syntax of loops. Okay, so you should understand what the for statement is, what the while statement is. But the more important thing over there is to be able to use these statements. Okay, so you should see uses of those statements. You should try. Okay, you should suppose you see one use of the statement, like something that we have done in the lectures. Then you should say, okay, so suppose I want to do something slightly different. How would I change this program? Okay, that is something that you should ask. Okay, or you should even ask something completely independent. You should say, look, I want to solve this problem. How do I solve that problem? Okay, so that is the kind of thinking that you need to do, which will enable you to learn. So you have to take initiative. Okay, so you have. So I will give you problems. So first solve them. So that is good. But what what calculation would I like to do? And you just look at your daily life, and you can see, okay, these are the things that are happening around me. Can I do a calculation which helps me in these day-to-day problems? Or this is the thing that I am learning in mathematics or in physics. So can I write a program which does exactly that? And and of course there are you look at the textbook and you will see lots of problems given over there. So you try to solve those problems, and that is the way to really learn well. Okay, so don't be worried about learning fast. Learning fast is not important. Learning well is important. So once you learn a few things well, later on you will see that you will be able to learn fast. But the basic things, you shouldn't be worried about learning fast. You should be worried about learning well. Due to some reasons, I was unable to fill the exam form. Can I once again subscribe this course in next session? I believe yes, but I think you should ask this question to the NPTEL administration. Okay, so they will answer very clearly for you. So let me not say anything more on this and possibly confuse you or give you wrong information. Okay, how can I develop more experience in every subject? So this is, of course, a very good question, but I cannot answer for every subject. I will answer for programming. And my answer is going to be similar to what I have said in response to some of the questions earlier. The only way to develop experience is to use your knowledge. So you have been taught something. How do you use your knowledge? You use that knowledge to write programs. What programs do you write? Well, pick up a book, solve the exercises in it, and see if you can solve them. Then you could ask, okay, so now I have written a program. Is this does this look like a nice program, or is it too complicated? Is it so? If I'm doing things manually, would I do it in this simplest possible manner? So those are the things that you should ask, and that is how you get experience. You can say, okay, I think it can be written in three different ways. Okay, maybe I should be using a while statement. Maybe I should be using the for statement. So the question there is that in some situations the for statement is better. In some situations the while statement is better. So if you want experience, if you want maturity, then you should be asking these questions. Okay, so a one-line answer is write more programs. Write more programs. Pick up a textbook, solve all the programming problems. If a book doesn't have enough programming problems, get another book. Look at the internet, and you will see lots of programming problems over there. Okay. Now there are, of course, very there can be many goals. The problems you may be expected to solve, the problems your program may be expected to run very fast. So in this course, getting your program to run very fast is probably, you may not be able to do that, but you will be able to write programs which at least solve the problem. Okay, so that is certainly, your goal should be certainly that. And your goal should also be to make sure that you understand, that you can argue to your friend that, look, my program is running correctly. And I can sort of say, I can be confident that no matter what the input is, okay, my program will run correctly. Okay. So to a certain extent, the idea is very similar. Since you have asked for every subject, this idea is applicable to other subjects also. In other subjects also, you have been given some information. Okay, so you have to apply that information. So you have to solve problems using that information. It could be physics, it could be mathematics, it could be economics. Okay, it could even be humanities. Okay, it could even be sociology, for all you know. So you can see, okay, so I know, I have been told about one situation. How do the ideas that I have been told, how do they work out in other situations? Okay, so this is the thinking that you have to do. Okay, so once you do that thinking, you will see that you will develop more experience in every subject. Okay, next question. Sir, I wanted to know that whether our exam will be conducted as scheduled in spite of the continuous rise in COVID cases, or there is some. So you know that the exams are postponed. So it is unfortunate, but I think it is the safest thing to do. And I think they will be scheduled. Again, talk to the NPTEL administration. And of course, please stay safe. Please take all precautions, wear masks, and don't take risks, and don't expose other people to risk. Okay. Sir, will you provide internship to students who pass the certificate examination? So I have not really thought about this to a great extent, but if you have a project, if you think that, look, you want to do something, then I may be able to provide an internship. So by all means, think about, is there something that you would like to do, and talk to me about it. Okay. At this point, I am not thinking about offering very specific internships. Okay. Next question is, I want basic goes with under please, because I taught to you step by step and thoroughly. I want basic goes with under. Um, I'm sorry, I don't understand this. I want basic to goes with under please, because I taught to you step by step and thoroughly. I really don't know what you're saying. I'm very sorry. Okay, please reframe your question, and please put it in the in that YouTube channel. Okay, and there is something here. No, I don't have separate sessions. You wish. I will follow your regulations and rules. Again, I'm sorry, I don't understand this. The next question is not a question. It says good. I will take it to mean that you are happy with the course, and if that is the case, I am happy. I'm happy that you are happy. The next question is, sir, which course and book on data structures and algorithm would you recommend for which your course will act as prerequisite? Uh, is there any? Okay, I think that's it. Yeah. So, so my course will act as prerequisite for any data structures course. There is absolutely no question. Okay. In fact, we have done a little bit of data structures material in the course already. All right. So at least we have introduced some data structures, and we have talked about uh, how the material in it could be implemented. Okay, so at least a little bit, and the basic idea of a data structures has been discussed. But of course, you should not. I mean, when you learn a data structures course, you should try to learn it again. Okay, so the data structures book or the data structures teacher will have some different way of looking at things, and you should certainly be open to changing your view. Okay, but yes, this course will absolutely act as a prerequisite for any data structures and algorithms course. Do I recommend specific books and courses? Well, Corman, Lyserson, and Revest is a really good book dealing with data structures as well as algorithms. But there are other books also. I think that's not the only book. There are other books on data structures and algorithms. I also like the book by Das Gupta, Vazirani, Papadimitriou. Okay, so that is also, but that's more a book on algorithms rather than on data structures. Uh, but I think so. Again, your attitude should be, especially in the data structures course, is let me write programs. It's not just about knowing what data structures are, or knowing what data structures do, which operations fast. Okay, it's about using those data structures, and that is what you should try to do. Okay, what is the pattern for marking in the weekly assignments which will be added to the final certificate exam? Okay, I think this has been mentioned, right? So we are going to take the best, I think, whatever has been whatever has been mentioned. Okay, we are going to take the best, I think, 8 out of 12 or something like that, and that is going to be added. Or I don't remember if it is 10 out of 12. I think it is 8 out of 12. So the best will be taken, and that will be added. Okay, so the next question is relevancy of C++ programming. Okay, so I think what is being asked over here uh, is language specific. The question is not about programming. I think it is more about a specific language. Okay, so let me say a little bit on that. Um, so as you know that there are many languages, and I would like to think of languages in two ways primarily. One way is languages which are low level languages, so to say, and one class of languages which are high level languages. Okay, so for example, so in a low level language, what happens is that you have to do everything. I mean, you have to really tell the computer exactly what is to be done. Okay, in a high level language, you can sort of describe things at a higher level, and then the computer will take care of a lot many details. Okay, so C, for example, is a low level language, and a high level language, for example, is something like Python or Scheme or Lisp, or even there are other high level languages like Prolog. So in these languages, what happens is that you say that, look, do this for every element in this set. There may be some corner cases. Okay, all of those things are taken care of by by the programming language. Now, C++ is a language which does both things. So on one hand, so you could say that it is a modern variation, a modern version of the C language. So on one hand, it contains everything that the C language has. So there may be some things which are slightly different, some libraries which may not be commonly used. So for example, in our course, we have not done so much with printing. So, so how to print, how to format the output, those are things that we have not done. But the libraries that are present in C can be used. So if you are really worried about how to print, then you should look at the manuals corresponding to those libraries in C. Okay, but every other feature of C is there in C++. So when you learn C++, you are covering C. Okay, whatever material is there in C, you are covering. Also, what you are understanding is how does the machine work at a low level. So what happens when you declare a variable? Okay, what happens when you add something? Okay, so these are details which you get to understand when you so you understand more about how exactly the operations happen. Okay, so if you at some point you want to do, say, programming involving, say, high speed graphics. Okay, so then you do need to understand what happens at the low level. Or for example, in C, there is a notion of a pointer, which is also present in C++. So these are concepts that you are forced to understand when you study C or C++. Okay, but they also give you a good insight into what happens at the hardware level. Whereas in a high level language, what is presented to you is a very abstract model of the machine. It is not like a real machine at all. Okay, so you don't get to understand how the real hardware works. So that is what high level languages do. Now, in C++, you have the choice, at least to some extent, of living at the high level as well. So if you use the data structures that I'm talking about, that I talked about in the last 2 weeks, so maps, sets, vectors, the string class, then you can deal with all that kind of data without really knowing or without really worrying about what is exactly going on at the level of the hardware. So to that extent, C++ is a high level language as well. Okay, there are many things in C which are quite annoying. So for example, in C, if you want to write a function, it has to be written separately for different types. Okay, whereas in C++, it is possible to write a function once and say that, look, say this function will work for all types. There is a way of saying that. Okay, so these are some of the ideas in modern programming which have come up in C++, which make programming easier. So okay, so let me summarize. So C++ allows you to see programming at the low level as well as at the high level. So the idea is that some parts of the program might be best written at a high level, and C++ allows you to do that. But if you really want to understand efficiency, if you really want to make your programs go very fast, then instead of using a language which only lets you see what happens at the highest level, a language like C++ is good. Okay, if you use a low level language, that will also make your program go very fast. But then you will have to do so much work. So your programming effort will be very high in a language like C. Uh, so C++ tries to give you the best of all worlds. Okay, so what will the exam pattern be? So as I said, the exam pattern uh, will be fill in the blanks and multiple choice. And there could be a program given, and you could be asked what should be filled in this blank for the program to run correctly, or you could be asked which of these choices will be appropriate. All questions need not be related to specific programs. There could be general questions also. There could be questions about how do you represent numbers. Okay. There could be questions about what is an appropriate data structure to use, whether you should be using a map or a set or something like that. Okay. Or an array, even whether you should be using an array, what type of array you should use. These are the questions. These questions will also be there. They need not all be related to programs, but most of the time, I think there will be many questions which relate to programs. So fill in the blanks type of questions, very similar to what you have been seeing in the quizzes. What are the steps to be followed for careers like software development, data science, etc., after learning a programming language? So, so I think you probably know the answer to this, right? And if you are probably not going to do this course entire. Okay, so if you are in a college, if you are doing a degree, and I think you should do a degree. Okay, if it is at all, unless it is impossible for you to do a degree. If you are doing a degree, then the degree will have lots of courses. I think it will have, as I said, it will have courses related to networks, databases, operating systems. Okay, all of these courses will be quite important. Data science, there will be courses on machine learning. Okay, there will be courses on statistics. So those are courses that you need to learn. Okay, so doubt in programming assignment 12.1 and 12.2. Okay, so you know that you have to ask, you have to tell me more clearly what doubt you have. I can't really just say that that you have doubt in. I can't answer this. Okay, I don't know what you have in mind. In general, I think you have to. So if you want good answers to your question, you should be telling us the following. You should be telling us what specific point you don't understand. Okay, or you should say, or you could ask something like, this is my understanding, but at this point I am feeling confused. Okay, so if you do that, then you will get answers. If you just say, I don't understand this programming assignment, it is very hard to help you. Okay, please don't do that. Please tell us, I mean, please show us that you are doing something. You have to remember something really important over here. What so the learning is not, it is not that we are feeding information to you. The information has to germinate in your mind. So I would like to know what you have understood. Okay, so please tell us that. So anyway, I cannot answer this question. If there is a this is a question you have, I hope you have put it on the discussion forum and put more detail on it. Okay, dear Prof, please explain why my code is showing error while compiling the init canvas and button statements. Look, this is a question that has to go on the discussion forum. There are TAs who will answer that question. Okay, so and again, you have to attach the code, and you have to please. I mean, you really look. The TAs are not going to be there later on. Okay, so do some work on your own. Tell us what you think. Why is this happening? What did you do? Okay, because that is the real learning. If you get your difficulty solved, we will solve the difficulty. It's not that your difficulties will not be solved, but ask very specific questions, because that is also a part of the learning process. Okay, your method of explaining is exemplary. I really liked it. Now reading your book. My question is, do you have videos on data structures and algorithms? Okay, first of all, thank you for your comments. It is really a pleasure to have people say things like this, and I really want people to understand and find this subject pleasant and enjoyable and also satisfying. Okay, so I'm really happy that you are liking this whole thing. Okay, do you have videos on data structures and algorithms? Okay, so I have been thinking about making videos. Because of the pandemic, I have made some videos on data on algorithms, and I may release them or I may make a course. It will take some time, but yes, this is something on my mind. Okay, I am not a person from industry. Okay, but anyway, thank you for your comments. Oh, sorry, no, this was the one. Uh, of course, I would. It could be my privilege. Okay, okay. Thank you. Sir, does the question making a program to perform a task gonna be asked or just MCQ fill up? So no, so there is no programming. It's not going to be programming. It's going to be multiple choice questions and fill in the blanks kind of questions like the quiz questions that we already had. Should a CS student focus more in developing their problem solving skills or should they strengthen their skills in making real life projects? um, So if you make real life projects, you do need to develop your problem solving skills. Okay, presumably, I think you mean when you say problem solving, do you perhaps mean competitive coding? So if you do that, yes, that is important. It is useful to be able to write programs which run fast, which use the right data structures. Okay, but I think both are important. I can't say one is more important or one is less important. Okay, so so it is like so competitive coding involves very small, short programs relatively, and it is not about programs which evolve over time. Those are programs which happen in one shot. Whereas if you write a real life project, you understand a lot more about that application. Whereas in competitive coding, uh, the application is very there is no the real life element is very simple. You will find out that most real life problems are quite complex. Okay, so there are many cases, and it is a skill to handle all those cases in a nice way. It is a skill to handle the cases so that tomorrow, if I have to change something, if the industry requires something slightly different, if your client requires something slightly different, then you should not have to throw away your entire program, and you should be able to write a program which handles complexity, complex programming requirements, but still the program should be easy to read and easy to understand and easy to change. So both of these things are needed. I might say that in industry, the second thing might be more important, but you cannot neglect the first thing as well. Okay. Okay, sir, exams have been postponed, but can something be done so that students who want credits on time receive it? Uh, yes, this is a problem. I am very sympathetic to your predicament. Um, there is not much I can do. I think you will have to take it up with the NPTEL administration. But please remember that even they may not have anything that can actually help you, because I mean, unfortunately, our entire nation is going through this problem. So I don't know how to handle it. And I mean, everybody from the prime minister to the chief minister of your state to the mayor of your city, everybody is worried about this. So I mean, it's a very unfortunate time for us. Okay. I think the next question just says Jharkhand. I think maybe the question, something got missed out. Okay, let me just move on. Okay, I'm having difficulty in getting the concept of recursion in case where multiple recursive calls are made within a function. For example, in a merge sort. Okay, so so what you should do over here is you should put print statements. Okay, so examine what each recursive call is doing. At the beginning of that call, you put in a print statement. Okay, that's one way to think about it. The other way to think about it is reason out. So don't worry about what happens inside the recursive call. You can say to yourself, okay, I'm going to believe that this recursive call will do its job. Okay, for that you have to know what its job is. So if this recursive call does its job, okay, so what might that mean? That this recursive call, say in the case of merge sort, okay, so if this uh, uh, if this recursive call sorts this array properly, and if this other recursive call sorts that array properly, let me not worry about how it does the job. But suppose it does the job, then will my outer recursive call do the job? Okay. So if the answer to that is true, then that is enough. So there are really 2-3 ways in which you have to look at recursion. One way is just exactly what I have said. Do not worry about what happens inside the recursive call. Okay, but worry about what the recursive call is supposed to do. So what is that function supposed to do? That function is given an array, and it is supposed to sort it. Is it going to sort it recursively? Is it going to sort it non-recursively? Doesn't matter. Okay, so assume that it's going to get sorted. If it is going to get sorted, then is your higher level recursive call. So we are only looking at two levels: one call and what happens inside that call. So there is the higher level call, and then there are the recursive calls. So if the recursive calls work correctly, is the higher level call going to work correctly? If you can argue that, then you will be able to say that yes, my recursive function works correctly. So this is one level at which you should be able to think as far as recursion is concerned. Then there is an alternate view of recursion in which you have to ask yourself, do I understand exactly how this recursion works? So this high level call will produce these two calls. First, this call will execute. That call will produce these additional calls. So if you really want to know what is going on in this recursion, then you can put print statements. And you can put print statements, and you can maybe even stop the program. And you can say, you can put a statement which says, read the value of a variable just so that the program stops. Don't do anything. That variable is not important. Just say, I type a number, and you're not even going to do anything with that number. You're just going to put in that so that the program stops, and that all the statements do not fly past you on your terminal. Okay, and then there is a third idea also which I will tell you. So if you are reading the book, and I think even in the lectures, I have said something about drawing recursive pictures. So I think recursive pictures are make it quite easy to understand recursion. So I would say maybe you should focus on recursive pictures a little bit. So so even in recursive pictures, so you are drawing a tree, there are two calls, right? So do you understand those two calls? So first the right side tree gets drawn, then the left side tree gets drawn. And even when you draw the right side tree, the right of the right side tree might be getting drawn first, depending upon how you have programmed it. All right. So you should try to understand those examples, and also try and write some examples on your own. Okay. So draw some recursive pictures. So think about some recursive pictures yourself and try to draw them. All right. So that there are several given in the book. So you can try those. Okay. Uh, what is programming? Programming is understanding computation. Okay. So everybody has to compute. If you are in ECE, you have to solve a circuit, don't you? You will be given circuit values. You will be given the values of, say, resistance, capacitance, whatever, current sources, voltage sources, inductances, whatever, diodes. Okay, and you will have to figure out what the current in it is. So you know that today, if you are designing a circuit, nobody just goes out and builds that circuit. People will write simulators, and those simulators will first test your circuit. So in every field, simulation is a very important idea. So that means somebody has to write those simulators. Somebody has to know how those simulators work. And even for something very simple that you might be doing, having knowing programming is very, very good. Okay. So so to that extent, having this computational attitude, okay, is going to be very important. Is going to be very useful. It's actually very useful for learning math. As I have said, I have had several students come and tell me, even in this basic programming course, that sir, after I studied programming, now I am able to understand math much better. Okay? So I think that is certainly a benefit. So first is your engineering discipline will require programming. Okay, so it will require you to design a circuit. So when you design a circuit, even though you may not be writing a simulator, you will have to tell the program what your circuit is. So you may have to tell the program, the way to tell the program might be that, look, my circuit consists of this circuit component. Inside that circuit component, there are some other circuit components. Inside those components, there might be some other circuit components. You know what this is? This is nothing but recursion. Okay, so recursion will be useful for describing the systems that you may have to, you may be designing. Okay, so these ideas of recursion and iteration are fundamental in every discipline. Then they are fundamental in math. Okay, and finally, please consider this possibility that later on, when you finish, many of you may actually choose to take up a job in the software industry. So I think all in all, you really should approach this course with lot of energy and lot of enthusiasm and try to get the fun out of it. Okay, so there is a lot of fun in this course. So you should learn the course also for that fun. Okay, will these courses cover? Okay, so let me just see if I can change this. Sorry. I'm not able to. Okay, okay, maybe I can do this. Will these courses cover? Okay, I'm not. Presumably, you're saying you're talking. Oh, I think I can. I know what. Okay, will these go require for ESC and CESC students? So you can tell me, so some concepts which are required. Say, for example, we did a circuit calculation program, didn't we? So we showed how you can define a resistive network and how you can calculate the currents in it. And so yes, to a certain extent, the course will cover some concepts required for CSE and EC and CSE students. Okay, do you offer internship to toppers of this NPTEL course? Okay, so for now, I have not thought about it. Let me think about it and maybe I will. Okay, all right. Okay, next is no questions, not applicable. Okay, will there be any questions regarding the graphics of simple CPP in our proctored final exam? As I said, there may be some very simple questions, nothing too complicated. Okay, so something very basic. So don't get yeah. We are trying to ask you conceptual questions. We are we don't want to ask you questions which are about very specific information. Okay. So, I mean, say simple CPP has something which allows you to write text. So, is the first argument the coordinate of the text, or is it the body of the text? So these are not questions that we want to ask. We will try to ask you some conceptual questions. Say, for example, if there is a rectangle and is this point, how do you determine whether the point is inside, outside, something like that. Again, remember that this is going to be a what do you call it, a multiple choice and fill in the blanks. So no, so simple CPP questions will be fairly simple. So don't I mean, look at them a little bit, but don't get worried about them. Okay, I think I have finished the questions on which were sent to me earlier. So let me now move on to the, okay. Okay, so let me go to the beginning of this and let me try to explain this. Okay. Okay. Good evening. Good evening. Please ask your queries. Okay. Sir, if C++ compiler understand that 10 is integer and 10.0 is a float, then why we need data types to specify? Okay, this is a great question. Okay, so if you write x equals 10.0, okay, yes, C++ understands 10.0 is a float, okay, and the point is that if you write x equals 10.0 and x is an integer, you are saying to the C++ compiler, now convert this floating point number and put it into an integer. All right. So 10.0 is stored differently from 10, as you know. So that is why we need the data types. Okay. So then there is conversion. Sometimes you want to convert it. What if it is 10.6? You can store 10.6 also into an integer. But when you do that, that value is going to get converted. So when we say something is an integer, if a certain variable is an integer, so if a certain variable is an integer, we are saying that if you are still allowed to store floating point numbers into it, but those floating point numbers will get truncated. Okay, so it's really about so if you are saying that a certain, so it's not just only about those constants, it's also about the variables. So variables, you certainly need to say that this variable is meant for storing integers, this other variable is meant for storing floating point numbers. Okay, number on our keyboards are characters. Okay, so when you press a key, a character goes. Okay, but the C++ will interpret that character. So if you type 7 and 1, and if you are asking C++ to read in a character, then the 7 will get read as a character. If on the other hand, you are asking C++ to read a number, then that entire 71 will get read as number. So this is so the C++ program is helping you out a lot over here. So it is saying that, look, whatever is being typed, please interpret it as a number, okay? Or please interpret it as a character and then store it into this variable. So yes, the keyboards are, what you type on the keyboard, you can think of as being a character. But again, a character also is a number. But say if you type 1, it does what the number that the keyboard sends is not 1. It is some code. It could be whatever, some 57, something like that. Okay, but your C++ compiler, your C++ program that is running will know that what was typed was 57, but which means 1. And not only that, the C++ program that is running will know that, oh, the program really doesn't want a single character. It wants a full number. So it will wait for all, it will get all the digits and then convert those digits into a number, and then it will store that value into that variable. Okay. So Danish Raza says, good evening, sir. Good evening. Sabaji Naik says, your lectures are the best I've ever seen on programming. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Sabaji. I'm really happy. Okay. I did not get pointers. Okay. Uh, okay, so I can explain a little bit, but really this should go onto the discussion forum. Okay. So when you say you did not get pointers, uh, what is a pointer? Okay, a pointer is like a real life address. So you may be living on a certain street, you have a house number, so you know that houses on the street might be numbered from one end of the street to the other end of the street. So you know about what an address is in real life. Okay, so now you can think of your memory as a big city. Okay, so just as there are houses in a city, in a memory, there are there are capacitors, or there are groups of capacitors, and every capacitor or every group of capacitors has a certain number. So that's how just as you can say, look, go to this address and pick up this package from this address. Similarly, the way it works on a computer memory is you say, go to this address in the memory. And in this case, the addresses are simple. It's just a number. So if your memory is, say, 1 GB, then there will be what? A billion addresses. There will be a billion words. And so I can say that, look, give me the number which is stored in location, or in word or in byte number 572983, whatever it is. Okay, so it's exactly like an address. So in this case, the address happens to be numerical, but you're not really supposed to be doing arithmetic with it, at least by and large. Okay, you can do some arithmetic. If you want to say that, give me the next address, so that works, but don't do that. Okay, think about it just as an address. It could be 55 MG Road. Okay, so 55 MG Road is an address. 55 MG Road, Bhopal. I don't know whether there is an MG Road in Bhopal, but that is an address in India. Okay, so on a computer, the address is just a single number. Okay, so think of it as a very long street, a single very long street on which there are a billion houses. And in each house, you can store one value. And you are just saying, just as you give the address, you can give an address over here. That's it. So now, just as you can store values in in a memory location or in a group of capacitors, this address is also a number. So you can also store that address in a certain kind of variable. And so those are the pointer variables. Okay. If you have more difficulty, put it on the discussion group, and then I think the TAs will be able to help you with it. But you have to explain to the TAs what you are getting, what you are not getting. Okay, if C++ compiler understand is 10 is an integer, and okay, we did this. We will also have questions on graphics. Okay, so I have answered this earlier probably, and that answer is that we will have very simple conceptual questions, not too complicated. Don't get worried about it. What is the current status of the exam? So they are postponed. Please talk to the NPTEL administration. What book should we follow for C++? Okay, so I have already indicated my own book. So I would certainly say, but there are other books as well. And I think there are lots of websites also. So cplus.com is a good website. So if you want to know what is the syntax, what is about a certain concept, say about arrays or about about say data structures or about statements. So these websites will give you information. C++.com is among my favorite websites. When will online queries be taken? I think right away. Okay. There are many queries. Okay. Hi, sir. Whatever we learned in the introduction to same model questions. Yes. So whatever was the format will be exactly like the quiz. We would like to know your opinion on the statement saying doing MS and CSE in India is not worth it. Okay, look. So you really should get updated about this. Okay, I think doing CS in India is absolutely worth it. Okay, I mean, you get good jobs, you get really great training. I don't think that is the issue. I think the issue really is that it is much harder to get an admission into a good university in India. Say if you want to get admission in the IIT Bombay for an MTech program, it is much harder than getting admission to a small university in the US. Because so that is the real problem. So, but I think, I mean, you have to trade off. Okay, so the IIT education is much cheaper than the education in the US, and often it is much better than at least the less known universities in the US. I would say it is. So there are certainly some universities like MIT, Berkeley, Stanford. They are very good. I mean, I would say they are substantially better than IITs. But if you leave aside maybe some some 15 top universities, then the IIT education is better than certainly hundreds of universities in the US. Okay, and of the same level as sort of the universities just below the top 10 universities. And of course, it is the education is something what you make of it. Your teachers might be very good, but if you are not willing to take the initiative, then the education will not help, will not work. And so it works this way as well, that if your teachers may not be great, but if you are taking the initiative, then it will work out. So, okay, so what I can say is that the education in IIT is much better than, say, the top, than the bottom 90% education anywhere in the world. It is in the top 10%. Okay, so the difficulty, however, I think the difficulty is that it is hard to get admission even into the postgraduate. That is really the problem, and I don't know, we should be doing something about it, but that is our country's problem. Okay. Compiler, okay. Is it good to learn multiple languages or just go in depth in one programming language? Okay, so I think now that you have, so you should, if you have learned C++, understand C++ a lot better. Okay, so C++ is not a small language. So that doesn't mean that you should understand everything about C++. But what you should understand all the concepts that we have talked about. Okay, so iteration, recursion, structures, functions. You should understand things like, say, lambda expressions. Okay, and you should understand the standard libraries, the map, set, vectors, and you should be able to do a lot of programming. So once you have done that, I think you will find that other languages are very easy to learn. Okay, and say a language like Python, of course, is really great mostly because it has terrific libraries in it. Okay, but once you learn C++, learning Python is not really difficult. But as I said, I think some time ago, there are some new concepts as well. There are some ideas in a language like Python which are not there in C++. So for that reason, you should learn a language like Python. But if you learn Python as a first language, you will probably not learn these very special Python ideas. And then there is no point in particularly learning Python. So the special Python ideas that I'm talking about are, say, the ideas like this list comprehension like ideas, or you should be using Python to do something like some really high level programming. Okay, so some math programming and things like that. So you should be so. But if you're not doing that, I don't really feel that. I would say it is much better to stick with what you have learned and just get better at it. Become a really good programmer. Becoming a really good programmer is not so much related to a programming language. Okay. I haven't enrolled in this NPTEL course. It would be great help if you clear some doubts related to our college course. Okay, so if you mention the doubts, maybe I could clear it, but I don't know what to say. I'm not confident with pattern type questions. So could you please help me with that? So I don't know what is a pattern type question. So the questions that are going to be on the exam, if you're asking about that, are the questions which have been on the quiz, are of the same type. Okay? So that's all I can say. I don't think there is a resource book. I don't know if there is one. Do people still use assembly language for programming? That's an interesting question. So I think assembly language might be getting used. Okay, if you are doing some very low level, I don't know, say maybe robotics or something like that. Okay, but even there, I think today people will write at least a really small compiler. And compiler technology has developed so much that very often today it might be the case that your compiler will able to write a better assembly language program, will be able to generate a better assembly language program than what you might write manually, because the compiler will try out lots of things. So there will be somebody who has put in a lot of intelligence into the compiler, and therefore uh, assembly language is something that you should understand. Okay, but I don't think that you will really want to program in it too much. Okay, how to make a program on recursive function? Okay, so I think I have explained this at length in an earlier message, in an earlier question, and I think what I will say over here is study the recursive functions, the recursive programs that you have, put print statements, understand. So actually, so there is sort of a recipe given. There is a discussion in the lectures about how to deal with recursive functions. Okay, so I think you should understand that and write graphics programs. I think if you want to write programs for recursive functions, graphics related recursive functions are uh, very instructive. Okay, so there are pictures which are recursive. So if you can write programs to draw those pictures, I think you will find that you will learn recursion. Okay, please tell us about the concept of overloading in C++. Uh, Ma'am, this has been discussed in the lectures, so I will just ask you to look at those lectures. Okay, so you know that these lectures are available for everyone. So please look at those lectures. This is not a very completely simple topic that I can describe in a few minutes. When will online queries? Okay, so sorry, I think the first thing itself took a long time. Okay. Uh, okay, yeah. I'm enjoying the course and planning to learn your course on design and analysis of algorithms. Okay, I'm very happy to read that, and I hope you enjoy uh, that course and also your other learning. Uh, okay. Um, Team would like to ask, which is better, learning many programming languages or perfecting? Okay, so I have just answered this, and I think it's not a simple answer. Okay, I think it's sort of like, uh, should you learn five languages? Should you learn Marathi, Hindi, Tamil, French, or should you try to learn one language well? So there are arguments for both. Depends on what you want to do. But there is a lot of merit to learning one language well. Okay. What are L value and R value references? Okay. So an L value is a value that can appear on the left side of an assignment statement. Okay, that's what it abstractly means. So a reference can be an L value as well. An R value cannot be a reference. Okay, so I have avoided getting into this terminology because I think the terminology it's not quite needed at this level. All right. So instead, I have talked about references. So you cannot have a value on the left hand side. Say you cannot have the number 15 on the left hand side of an assignment statement. Okay, but you can have a reference. So a reference which appears on the left hand side of a statement means a variable. Whereas if it appears on the right hand side of an assignment statement, it implicitly means the value stored in the variable. So that's really what it is. Okay, number on keyboard or character. Okay, so we already talked about this. Learning programming language is like learning rag. Once you perfect one rag and develop taste of it with guidance of a good guru, wow, bravo! I think this is a wonderful answer. So those of you, those students who understand Indian classical music, this is a great answer. Okay, so please listen to this, man. Okay. uh, Pattern question is, I mean, like Plint, star pattern, pyramid pattern, hollow number pattern. Oh, uh, no, I would not go by all these things. Okay, I would. Sorry. No. Okay. Now I understand what you're saying. So these are programming exercises. Okay, so we have to go beyond that, right? And so yeah, so so yeah, so these are good things to understand, say recursion or iteration. Okay, so those are quite yeah, so but you should not get stuck at that. Okay, so you should do more things, and you should actually, rather than star pattern, okay, you should do the graphics, because the graphics is much richer and you can do many more interesting things. So say for example, you can do circles. Okay, so it will be sort of a good mix of math and programming, and also recursion. So that is certainly, those are certainly important things. Life of MTech student in IITB. Okay, I think the uniform reaction of MTech students in IITB is that they enjoy teaching very much. They enjoy the, the education in IIT very, very much. Okay, I think I'm probably not wrong in saying that when they come to IITs, they feel that a new window has opened for them. They see things in a different way. Okay. Again, there are, of course, I mean, when I say IITs, I don't mean specifically IITs. I mean a good, I do mean specifically IITs, but let me acknowledge that there are several institutions in India which are like IITs. Okay. So I'm talking in general. So when I say so when I say that students in IITs like the education and they feel that there is a new window that has been opened. I am talking about IIT Bombay. Okay, so I have heard this from the MTech students who join over here. But I don't want to say that this is only true for IIT Bombay. I think this will be true for many, many institutions. And unfortunately, it is not true for many, many of our undergraduate institutions. And for whatever reason, when students come to IIT Bombay, they do tell us that, look, we really love the way subjects are taught over here. Okay, and I suspect that that is similar in several IITs. But I mean, I know firsthand from IIT Bombay. And I think the difference mainly is that we ask students to use their knowledge. Okay, not just know things, but use things. And when you start using things, then things become then the real fun begins. Okay, then the real exciting part comes in. Then you see that, look, what I am learning is very powerful. Okay, and that's very pleasurable. Or you may see that, look, maybe I should be able to use this, but I have really not understood it. And then you try to work hard, and when you work hard you learn, and that learning is very pleasurable. So it really comes down to application. Okay, so yes, life in IIT is about application, is about doing things in many different ways. But I think I should also tell you that these are ideas that you can practice wherever you are. Of course, if you come to IITs, it will be much easier. Okay, but those are the reasons why I say that things might be things are quite exciting in a place like IIT Bombay. Uh, how to write C out in operator? Okay, okay. So Sabhaji, I will have to refer you to the book. It is discussed in the book somewhere. Okay, and yeah, I think so. Look, so I don't really remember these things off the top of my head. Okay, so whenever I have to do it, I go to the book because this is not something that is worth remembering. I mean, I want to remember things which are much more important. These things are good. I should know that it is very convenient for us to be able to redefine the C out operator. Hey, let me just switch on the light over here. Just a second. Okay. So it is useful to know that C out can be defined, but I don't remember it. Okay, because there are too many details, and you should be remembering things which are a lot more important. There are many things which are much more important that you need to be remembering. Okay, so so go back to the book and look at it. It has been discussed somewhere. I can't really point out the exact place, but if there is a problem, write a note on the discussion forum and we'll see that. Okay. Um, okay. Where do we get in? Why do we get integer or integer division in C++ and Java? And any reason behind this? Yeah, so this is a good question. I think I'm not even sure that this is really the best possible. So I think what you mean is that if I divide 5 by 3, I get 1 rather than whatever, 1.66, rather than the floating point number. So I think these languages were defined long ago. And at that point, people thought that if I divide an integer by an integer, I should try to get an integer. Okay, the default should be an integer. So it is a little bit annoying, and I think it can cause bugs. So I think this is a drawback of C++, Java. Python has done something good about this now. I think not in the early versions of Python, but I think Python 3 and above. If you divide 3 by 5, you do not get 1. You can force yourself to get 1 by writing slash slash, but the default, if you divide 5 by 3, is 1.66666. Okay, so I hope I'm answering your question, but yes, this is not this is not necessarily the only way of doing things, and the modern version of Python is doing something which is better than what C++ and Java are doing. Okay, Priyanshu says, this course is really good, sir. It helped me to develop my beginning concept for programming. I'm really happy that you're saying this, Priyanshu, and wish you all the best. We will accept more courses from you. Okay, I will be, I will try to do my best. I will try to make more courses. Okay. What is stack and heap memory? Okay, so I have discussed this, right? Okay, so heap memory I have discussed. Stack I have not discussed. Okay, um, I have not discussed explicitly, but I have said that when you call a function, an area gets allocated for the function. If that function itself calls another function, some additional area gets allocated. And when the function returns, the allocated area goes away. It goes away in the sense that it says that that it is no longer being used. Now, how is this actually implemented on a computer? So this area that is being allocated is it gets allocated in a sequence. So maybe the addresses 1 through 100 get allocated, then 100 through 200 get allocated, then 200 to 300 get allocated. Okay, so it's kind of, so if you are putting papers on your desk, you put something on your desk, then so somebody comes and says, oh, look at this. So then you put some new set of papers on that desk. Then you say, then you set, okay. Then you put some additional set of papers there. Okay, so that is how it works. So and then the memory gets deallocated, right? So the top paper goes away, then the next paper below it goes away. Okay, so this detail you don't really need to worry about, the stack detail. All right, the heap memory is, I think we have discussed, the heap memory you have to explicitly allocate and deallocate. All right, so I think that's about it. I think yeah, I think we are really out of time. We have overshot our time by half an hour. Yes, please feel free to put the queries on the discussion forum, and we will try to answer it over there. All right. Thank you very much. I think, as I said, we have overshot our time, but I hope that this discussion, this session was useful, and we will try to answer remaining queries on the discussion forum. Thank you. Okay. Thank you all.